everybody. This is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing very well. So, today, what I want to kind of do is go over the top 50 greatest basketball players of all time during the 1970s. And I think there are about maybe a little over 20 players on this list, which was comprised in 1996. Um, I think that list actually should be added to at this point. It's been over 25 years or so. Um, I think too that what I'd like to do is just kind of show you some of your cheaper alternatives to a lot of these players' rookie cards, which, in fact, when I went over the list, I found that the true rookie cards of at least 5 or 6 of these players were actually in the 1968 Topps test set, which is really unaffordable for even myself, the majority collector or the advanced collector, even just because the 1968 Topps test set, as beautiful as those cards are, there's probably maybe 200 of those complete in existence. And from what I've heard, is that those cards weren't issued to the public, but rather to Topps executives. And I'm just going to kind of tell you guys right off the bat of who those players are. Um, Dave Debucher, Willis Reed, Dave Bing, Earl Monroe, John Havelchek, and Bill Bradley. And unfortunately, these cards are really they're they're really not seen enough. And when I was at the National, I did see a bunch of these cards, which again I've seen maybe one or two here and there, but I'll actually show you guys a photo of the grouping that I saw at the National, and I was astounded. I've never seen that many 68 Topps test cards in one group. Today, I am going to go through some of these ball players. I think there's about maybe 20, 22 or so here. And some of the cards I think are going to be really cheap, very affordable. A few might not, but it's the 1970s. It's a great time in basketball, and I kind of wanted to share this with you because if you guys wanted to start a basketball collection from the 1970s, um, or say players who basically played from the 1960s through the 1980s, um, the bulk, I think, of the guys that I'm going to tell you about today, they were from the 1970s, but played in basically 3 different decades: 60s, 70s, and 1980s. And in one case, I think of Hal Greer. He played in like 1958. However, let's get into this. And so the first player that I want to tell you guys about is Lou Alcindor, and this is the 1971 Topps. And I really like this card. This is probably one of my favorites. And he is actually a 6-time MVP, a 19-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA defensive team. And I had to look that one up. So that is awarded since 1968 to the best defensive players in the league. And he also is a 6-time NBA championship winner, and he's considered one of the top 3 all-time players ever in the history of the league. And so when he won these championships, it was in 1971. The first time was with the Bucks, and they just had another championship in 2021. So congratulations to the Bucks. And so in 1980, he won his second, and in 1982, 1985, 1987, and 1988. And he was also the NBA Rookie of the Year as well. And let's see, he's also a 2-time scoring champion. And his points are really pretty incredible, I think. 38,387, which kind of averages out to 24.6 points per game. He's got 17,440 rebounds and 500. I'm sorry, five. Let's try that one again, shall we? 5,660 assists. He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1995, and his playing career was from 1969 to 1989. His rookie card is kind of expensive, which is why I kind of chose this card right here. If you guys wanted to try to add a early Lou Alcindor or a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to your collection. The other one I have is the 1972. And I've actually found this to be a little cheaper than this 1971, although I like both of them quite a bit. This one is a little bit more affordable, and I see them about equally as often, and so I don't think you're going to have much of a problem trying to track one of these down. Um, Again, they can be pretty expensive, especially graded or decent copies. I'm not really a big fan of grading, as you guys probably know. Uh, if I go for a card that's graded, I'm not going for the grading company. I am going for the card that is in the holder, and for me, it's more important to actually have the card. And if it's graded, okay. If not, it's no big deal for me. I do actually kind of prefer raw copies of cards just because I'm a cheap bastard, and why not? So, um, there's this card, and I like the design, to tell you the truth. Maybe a little bit more so than the 71, but uh, in in both cases, the 1971 and 72 tops basketball are really fantastic, and I think they're also a great way to start collecting Hall of Famers as well on the cheap. If you're anyone who is budget conscious like me, so Lua Sunder does have a lot of cards, and they're not all that expensive, especially going into the 1980s. The 1975 is not bad. They're oversized, so that they're a little bit harder to store. Um, but I have also found that the 1979 is a really nice copy as well. And the one thing I've found with this particular card is that not only do they have centering issues, as I guess all tops from the 1970s and 80s have, but there's a lot of snow associated with this particular card just because the background um, is such a nice deep blue or royal blue that if there is snow on here or print streaks, they're going to just pop. And so if you could find one in a really decent condition, I think it's going to cost you about maybe $20 or less. Um, but I really do like the design of the 1979. Tops did a fantastic job in this year. And so I'll show you the back of this, in fact, too, if you haven't really come across any of these. The majority of the 79 tops, I think, is pretty cheap. So you're not going to have much of a problem trying to track one of these down either. They're very popular, especially this card. This is card number 10. Um, the number on the 1972 here is 100, and the 19. Oh, I'll show you the back of it too. So that's the back of the 1972, and the back of the 1971. Again, it is number 100 as well. So on to our second ball player, Oscar Robinson. And Oscar Robinson, I think, is probably one of the greatest ball players ever. Again, every player that I'm going to mention here is in the uh, 50 greatest basketball players of all time. And I'm just focusing now on the 1970s. But obviously, like I said, a lot of these players were playing in the 1960s through the 1980s as well. They spent the bulk of their time in the 1970s. So Oscar Robinson's rookie is really prohibitively expensive these days. I think it was even when I first started collecting as a teenager. And I never could get my hands on that card. Even when I did collect that set fully, I still was missing a kind of a number of 1962 or 61 Flair basketball, but I really kind of made my bones with that set early on. And unfortunately, I sold the majority of it to go to college. Anyway, if you're looking for a nice Oscar Robertson, I think this is a really cheap example that you can add to your collection. Now, when it comes to his statistics, he played from 1960 to 1974, and he was a 12-time All-Star, and he was the first player in 1962 to average a triple-double. He had 181 throughout his career, and this was for over an average season. He was the first guy to do this. Um, since his retirement, though, Russell Westbrook, who I've never actually seen him play, but he actually holds the record for the most triple doubles with 194. Um, Big O, Oscar Robinson, has the 1964 MVP. He's also a 9-time All NBA first time team, 6-time assist leader, and he's also on the NBA anniversary team, the 35th, the 50th, and the 75th. He's also the 1961 Rookie of the Year as well, and he's got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the NBA. When he was a college player, he was the College Player of the Year in 1958 and 1960, and he's also a gold medal winner from the 1960 Olympics as well. He's talk about advancing up. I mean, what can't this guy do? Seriously, uh, he's also a two-time Hall of Fame inductee, um, and again, he's the 50 greatest players of all time. And the one thing too is if you follow the legal profession or laws or anything like that, like I do, and especially antitrust, there's a lot of cards in the hobby have been, I guess, uh, they're been greatly influenced by antitrust decisions, especially our tobacco cards. But in the case of Oscar Robinson, he actually brought the NBA to suit in 1970 over antitrust, and it was Robinson versus the NBA. Now, I haven't actually read this. I probably will at some point, and write a really boring article for you guys to fall asleep over. However, um, Robinson really is Robertson really is a fantastic ball player, and I think this is a great addition to your collection. He also has a really nice 1972 as well, and I'm not entirely sure which one I like better. Uh, Maybe this one, in fact. But the one funny thing is, I didn't know that he was on the Bucks because he started out with the Cincinnati Royals, and in 1970, in fact, is the first time he was with Milwaukee, and Milwaukee won the championship in 1971 when these cards were issued. These cards are not expensive either. I think you can get these for about $25 to $50, or maybe a little bit more for decent examples. But again, the 1971 and 72 tops, they do have their issues, particularly with not so much snow, but with soldering and maybe print streaks as well. However, we'll go on to our next player, and that happens to be Pete Maravich. And Pete Maravich is a really fascinating person, not just a basketball player, but as a human being. I've always heard stories about Pete Maravich or Pistol Pete. He actually has, let me just really double check. All right, so he played from 1970 to 1980, and he's a 5-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA First Team, 1976 and 1977, a second, or let's see, 2-time second uh, team as well, And let's see, he's a 1977 scoring champion, and all three of his teams retired his number. Uh, he's actually the one of the youngest players to have been inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. And the really funny thing about this particular card is a lot of uh, collectors and dealers and whoever still say that this is a short print card. I'm not entirely sure why this card would be short printed. I've never heard of any great explanations. And I've seen quite a number of these cards. The thing that may hold you back a little bit is the expense. Now, when I picked this card up, I think it was about $35. It was under 40 for sure. Um, and I've always heard stories about this card being short printed, but I can't find any information as to why it would be short printed. Um, it is a very popular card though, and it's on a lot of collectors' want lists. And it's just a classic. It really is. I highly recommend this card. And if you really wanted to grab his 1971, 72 Icy Bear, it is basically the same image, but with uh, a cloudy sky, I guess, background. And it's a larger card, obviously. But those Icy Bears are really kind of nice. Um, but this card would look probably very nice in your collection if you wanted to grab a Pete Maravich. The other Pete Maravich card I have is the 1979 Tops, and I'm not really a big fan of the photo per se, but again, having a Pete Maravich card in your collection is better than having no Pete Maravich card in your collection. He's also on the Utah Jazz as well. I really enjoy the uniform design as well as the design of the 1971 tops. But I kind of wonder where they got the design from. It's the 1970s, and they were experimenting with really cool designs back then, especially with the ABA. The NBA cards, their uniforms are switched over. The numbers are on the front, while the ABA players are kind of like this, where you can see the front logo. And I've always kind of heard conflicting stories as to why that would be. Some say that it was a labor dispute, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I will figure it out at some point. In any event, the next player I want to talk to you guys about is Rick Barry, and this card was actually the most expensive basketball card I've ever purchased at $60. Actually, I think it was $66 to be more exact, and the dealer I don't think would have budged a whole lot more. So at $66, I'm like, okay, fine. I didn't really understand at the time why this card was so expensive. It's not really that. Uh, it's not really a difficult card, I think. I have seen a number of these, but the thing that you might want to watch out for is the background of this card because like this card has a print bubble right here, but anything that's on it, like snow or whatever, will jump out. And obviously, Rick Barry, looking into him more closely, I could figure out why he was so expensive. A, it's his rookie card. B, he's the 1975 NBA champion. He's with the Warriors, and he also has a, let's see, five-time All ABA first team, NBA Finals MVP. I think that's in 1969. He's also the 1969 ABA champion with the Oakland Oaks, and that was versus the Pacers. And the Pacers really had a small dynasty in the early 1970s with the ABA, and they ended up actually being one of the very few ABA teams that went on to uh, go into the National Basketball Association, NBA. Um, and so Rick Barry also was the 1967 scoring champion. So he played from 1965 to 1980. It's kind of a long time as a basketball player. He's the 1966 Rookie of the Year, and uh, in the ABA, he's got a career three throwing percentage of 880, and it's actually the first or the it's the highest career three throwing percentage of anybody in the ABA. But his 900 percentage is the best of any player at the time of his retirement in the NBA as well. So he was a really fantastic ball player. This card is going to run you a little bit of money though. Obviously, I again don't really collect a lot of PSA graded cards or graded cards in general. So I was just really kind of happy just being able to own a copy, even in raw. Again, I have no problem with raw cards at all. That's how I started. So, when I first started, grading was not even a glint in someone's eye. It didn't exist. So um, if you somehow can't afford that card, or you don't actually like the card itself, which some collectors, they don't like the rookie cards of certain players because they don't look good. Um, and so his 1972 is actually not that bad either. And it's a lot cheaper too. I think I paid $5 for this card, um, and it's actually it's actually really nice. I do like um, the design and the color schemes of this particular set. And so the next player that I want to tell you guys about is Wilt Chamberlain. This is obviously the 1972. I don't like the 1971 Wilt Chamberlain at all. And I do have his rookie card from 1961 Flair. But for anyone who can't afford it, and I understand completely, uh, the card, again, 1961, 62 Flair are not that difficult to find. It's just the expense. And at this point, I think they're probably more expensive than a 1984 Oldsmobile Shipbox Supreme. So this card actually cost me about $60, and uh, it's fine. I'll take this card any day over the 71. And for you guys who can't afford a rookie card, this is probably going to be a very affordable option. Both the 71 and the 72 can be expensive if they're graded, so you're gonna have to shop around a little bit, and then again, kind of like negotiate with your dealer on this to see if you guys can get a better deal. I do like this card quite a bit just because of the color scheme going on here, and the blue background really pops out with the jersey. I think if it was a different jersey, it wouldn't really kind of be all that great. But let's get on to his statistics because, quite frankly, Will Chamberlain is considered one of the top three uh, basketball players of all time, and it's really incredible looking over his statistics. It's really gaudy, and so um, he played from 1959 to 1973. He's a two-time champion in 1967 and 1972. He's the Finals MVP in 1972, the four-time MVP, 1960, and then again 1966 through 1968. 13-time All-Star, seven-time First Team, 1960 Rookie of the Year, and obviously he's got most points in a game with 100, and that was with the Philadelphia Warriors. That ball was actually missing for quite some time. I think it was lifted. It was stolen, I think, um, from a member of the staff, and so they found it like quite recently, I think, and went up for auction. But he's the only one to actually score 100 points in a game. Uh, just incredible, incredible. And then so uh, when it comes to points, he's got 31,419, which is basically 30.1 points per game. It's an average. Rebounds, he's got 23,000. 924, and then 4,643 assists. He's the seventh time scoring titles champion, 11-time rebounding titles champion, 9-time field goal percentage champion. And again, he's regarded as one of the greatest there ever was. Uh, and he actually averaged 30 points per game and 20 rebounds per game over the course of his career. And he made it to the Hall of Fame in 1978. He's also the NBA 75th anniversary team as well, and the 1972 NBA Finals MVP. He's also responsible for many changes in the NBA on the just the way he played on his style, and between him and Bill Russell, I don't know who's better. In fact, when those guys teamed up against each other, it was just lights out. Great, great show for anybody who actually watched them play. Um, Obviously, I did not because I was not alive. But if I was, the first place I would be is at the Boston Garden to watch these two teams. Um, from what I've heard outside of his career, he's also notorious for the ladies too, and I don't really believe that he had 20,000 women. Um, that especially without having a kid. Let's face it. However, the stories there are kind of interesting, and I'll leave it at that, shall we say. Anyway, uh, I think this is actually a great card for anybody who's willing to pick up a Wilt Chamberlain card because it's not that expensive, at least not compared to his rookie, which I've seen plenty of those, and they go for anywhere between like $5,000 to 50. Why would you would pay $50,000 for a baseball card or a sports card is beyond me. I'm all for the hobby, and I know in order to have a nice collection, you do have to pay out a little bit, but I think you could spend that 50 grand on something a little bit better. Even I think even a car. I don't know. Again, I'm a cheap bastard when it comes to this stuff, and I will wait. I will wait to come across a nice example that is affordable. So there is that. Now, um, let's go on to Jerry West. And Jerry West, he's been in the press quite recently over that HBO documentary on Magic Johnson, and Jerry West was not portrayed in a not just a favorable light, but an accurate light because there's a lot of people who played with Jerry West. Jerry West is still alive, and people who played for him who said that the HBO special really didn't do him justice, and it was very upsetting for him to be portrayed as an alcoholic. Now, I haven't seen that documentary at all. I don't really plan on it, but I always wanted a Jerry West card in my collection, and I came very close to picking up his rookie at the same time I picked up the Wilt Chamberlain rookie. I think I paid like $200 for the Chamberlain rookie, and the guy wanted 175 for the West rookie, and I passed it up foolishly because I don't think that is ever going to come back down to earth either card. In fact, that's why I picked up this card here. This was very reasonable, and so I wanted to get to some of his stats. So this is, by the way, the 1961 Flair is not West's rookie card. He's got a 1960 Cons, and so there's some debate among collectors and dealers as to rookie cards and mainstream versus cards that were issued regionally, and I think that is a debate that has been raging for at least 40 years, ever since Beckett ended up issuing a monthly publication. So he's nicknamed as the Logo Man because he is the person on the logo of the NBA, or Mr. Clutch, and he was just scary good. He's the 1972 NBA champion, NBA Finals MVP, and 1972 All-Star Game MVP as well. He's a 10-time first team All NBA, and 14-time All-Star, a 1970s scoring champion, and the 1972 assist leader. And then as an executive, he's an 8-time champion. And, you know, I can assume that Phil Jackson had a lot to do with that as well. So, um, anyway, this was a really prime example of a card that I think that is affordable for the majority of collectors out there. Again, I didn't pay a whole lot for it, and it is quite nice. All right, so the next card I want to show you is the 1972 Topps Bob Lanier. He does have a 1971, which I think maybe his rookie card. I'm not a big fan of that card at all. I prefer this card right here. But he is an 8-time All-Star. He's a 1974 All-Star Game MVP. And again, he's a Hall of Famer, and he made the Hall of Fame in 1972. And he's a really big name in basketball. All right, so the next card I want to talk about is the 1972 Topps Dr. J, Julius Irving. I don't have this card. I almost picked it up at the National. I think they wanted 400 for it, and I passed it up. Um, it's not particularly tough card to find, but it does have its problems, and that is the background, uh, and the focus on that card can be a little off sometimes, as well as the centering can be really off. Dr. J is probably one of my all-time favorite ball players to watch in the NBA, along with Larry Bird. And I absolutely loved watching Dr. J. But while he was with the NBA, he was the 1983 NBA championship with the Philadelphia 76ers. And then he was also the two-time ABA champion in 1974 and 1976. He's a two-time ABA playoffs MVP and a two-time All-Star Game MVP and five-time ABA All-Star and the ABA All-Time Team. Um, he's also with the 50, 75, and the 30th anniversary team as well. And he averaged 38 points per game and 20 rebounds. Three-time ABA MVP and the 1981 MVP as well. And so, if you can't find his rookie card or it's too expensive, like the majority of us, I think, uh, he's got some really nice cards out there. One of those is the 1981 Topps, which I have somewhere around here. I can't dig it out right now, but um, I really enjoy that card, and he's got, I think, a flair from like 1986 and 1987 before he retired. But again, he's one of my all-time favorite basketball players, and I kind of missed out on an opportunity to meet him. I never have at the National. So at some point, I would like just to go up and shake his hand and say thanks for all the great memories. So the next player I want to talk about is Gail Goodrich, and this is really one of my favorite cards in the set. Just the photography alone is fantastic. Gail Goodrich played from 1965 to 1979. He was on the Lakers' 1972 championship as well. And if there's any footage of that, you guys can let me know. I'd love to see it. Um, anyway, he is a five-time All-Star, and when he retired, he was 11th all-time in scoring and 10th in assists. He's also in the Hall of Fame as well. And again, um, this is a really affordable copy for anyone who wants to purchase a Gail Goodrich card. The next card that I'm going to show you is Dan Issel's rookie from 1971. And Dan Issel played from 1970 to 1985. And he was the 1971 ABA Rookie of the Year and ABA champion from 1975 as well. And I've heard a lot about the Colonels. They were, I guess, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And so they did win a championship. I think it's 75 is their only one. Uh, they also skipped the chance to go into the NBA when the ABA folded, and I'm not entirely sure why they didn't. Money may have been probably the biggest factor because a lot of those teams did fold, I'm not entirely sure again about the Colonels. They had some great teams and Hall of Famers, especially when he teamed up with Louis Dampier. Those two guys were just incredible from everything I've heard. Dan Nessl retired in 1985. He was actually in really good company because he was slightly behind Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Dr. J for the most points scored. And so, if you guys are looking for a decent card of his 1971 rookie is fairly cheap. I think I paid something like $30 for it, uh, and that's only because it is his rookie card. But he's a very popular ball player, and this is on a lot of collectors' want lists. Now, for whatever reason you don't like this card, he does have a 1972 tops, which looks like this, and this is actually really affordable as well. This is, I think, cost me like $5. Um, so you guys can add Dan Issel all the way up through 1985 if you wish. And I do prefer both of these cards. So Willis Reed played from 1964 to 1974, and he is a two-time champion, 1970 and 1973, and a Finals MVP and the 1965 Rookie of the Year. This is a really nice card. I found though that it can be off registration quite a bit, and I'm not sure entirely why that is. This card happens to be off center too, but um, for my collecting purposes, that's okay. I can upgrade if I want. A lot of times I found that the 1972 and 1971 tops basketball are found in really nice condition still, even for being 50 years old plus at this point. Uh, this card is obviously it's not his rookie. That's the 1968 Topps test set, but this is again a really fantastic card, and I think Willis Reed is really kind of underrated today. I don't think there's a whole lot of collectors who really know a whole lot about him. I wish that was not the case, and I'll probably be talking more about Willis Reed in the future. And so this is card number 30. If you guys are interested in picking it up, it's not terribly expensive either. It's very affordable, and it's a really nice looking card. The next player that I want to tell you guys about is Robert Parish, and Robert Parish is someone I grew up watching on the Celtics with Kevin McHale and Larry Bird, and they're known as the Big Three. And he actually came up with the Golden State Warriors in 1976. So he just kind of like caught the tail end of the 1970s, and he spent the bulk of his career in the 1980s and retired in 1997. So I think he had like a 21-year career, which is very impressive to me. He was a four-time champion, mostly I think with the Celtics, and then I think he had one championship with the Chicago Bulls. And so I was actually quite disturbed when I heard that he went to the Chicago Bulls, but that's another time for another story, I guess. And so he's also a nine-time All-Star, and he's on the 50th and 75th anniversary team. And Robert Parish has a lot of cards out there, and this is one of his earliest cards. His 1977 is a little on the expensive side, which is why I picked up this card right here. And the 78 is not a bad looking set, and it's actually quite affordable. So next is Earl Monroe, and I was always looking for a nice Earl Monroe card. I think he's in the 1971 and 72 set as well, but uh, those two cards I'm not a big fan of. So I picked out his 1973, and it was really cheap, very affordable. Earl Monroe, if I wrote down, where is he on my list? Yeah, so okay. His rookie card is in the 1968 Topps test set. Again, the majority of collectors are not going to be able to get that card. So, um, again, he does have cards out there because he played from 1967 to 1980. He won the championship in 1973. He's a 1968 Rookie of the Year and a four-time All-Star. He's also on the 50th and 75th anniversary team as well. So again, the 1973 Topps cards, the set itself, I'm not sure how you guys feel about it. For me, it's a couple of steps below the 1971 and 72 Topps basketball sets, but it still is not a bad looking set. The photography in a lot of these cards is actually quite nice, very simple, which is okay for me. Again, I'm a vintage collector and I don't like shiny stuff. Next player I'm going to show you guys is Dave Cowens. And Dave Cowens played from 1970 to 1983. He's the 1971 NBA Rookie of the Year, 8-time All-Star, 1973 MVP, and two-time champion. And this actually happens to be his rookie card. And for me, it was kind of difficult to pick up. It was, again, on a little more on the expensive side as well, just because of who he is, especially in Boston as well. I don't think he's talked about nearly enough these days. But again, this is a key to the 1971 top set, and it is quite nice. For whatever reason, if you don't like this card, and I can see why his jersey is turned around, but he does have a very nice 1972, and this was actually really cheap. Again, I think I paid $5 for it or less. And in some cases, I've actually picked up cards of Hall of Famers in the set for a couple of bucks. So the majority of this set, I think you guys can complete, and the 1972. Like I said, there's very few cards in both of these sets that you're not going to be able to afford. Another player I want to tell you guys about is Billy Cunningham, and they used to call him the Kangaroo Kid. He played from 1965 to 1976. He was on the 1967 championship team, and he was a four-time All-Star, and in 1973 ABA MVP, and he was the Player of the Year in 1965. And he really is a fantastic ball player. I don't think he's talked about all that often these days. I think he's kind of forgotten about. Um, if you don't like that card, the 71, this is his 1972, which I actually like this card quite a bit, and it's pretty cheap. Um, I think the 1971, I think cost me about $15 or so, but they're both pretty affordable. So Dave Debucher happens to be another one of my favorite ball players, and again, his rookie card is in the 1968 Topps test set. So this is a great example of his cards. Dave Debucher actually played in Major League Baseball as well as a pitcher with the Detroit Tigers and the White Sox from 1962 to 68. And you didn't see a whole lot of this going on back in the 60s with a two-sport guy. Um, he played from 1962 to 1974, was a two-time champion and eight-time All-Star, and again, he's in the Hall of Fame. But he's really kind of a well-respected ball player. Another player that I want to show you guys is Walt Frazier, and I have been looking for a card of Walt Frazier for a long time. It's not expensive either. His cards are not difficult to come across. It's just kind of finding out, which card kind of fits in your collection. I didn't particularly care for either the 71 or 72 tops, so I chose the 1977, and this is actually a really nice card, and I'll show you the back of it. I don't have too many 77 tops basketball in my collection, but Walt Frazier, he played from 1967 to 1980. 1980, yeah. He was a two-time champion, 1970 and 73, and a seven-time All-Star. He's on the ABA all-time team. Nope, sorry, that's George Girvin. My bad. Anyway, Walt Frazier is really very affordable for the average collector, and I chose this card from my 50 all-time great NBA players. Growing up in Boston, I always heard about John Havelchek, and he played from 1962 to 1978. He was a eight-time champion and a 1974 Finals MVP and a 13-time All-Star. He's also in the Hall of Fame. Uh, his rookie card is actually the 1968 Topps Test Set, but as I keep on mentioning, that the Topps Test Set from '68 is really very difficult for the average collector. So if you really want a John Havlicek card in your collection and you can't afford the 1969 Topps, the Tall Boy, I have that card. It's not a fan favorite of mine. I'm not really digging it all that well just because of the size, but um, I just kept it and I never sold it. So I wanted another John Havlicek card in my collection just in case I do decide to part with his rookie card, if you will. In any event, this for me was a perfect example, and so this again is I think kind of getting a little more expensive, and so I think I paid something like $20 for it, and it may just be because I purchased it in Boston, and I'm from Boston, so uh, you guys might be able to pick it up for like $10 throughout the country. Who knows? Anyway, um, another player that I wasn't all that familiar with until I started to dive into the 71 and 72 top sets was Elvin Hayes here, and Elvin Hayes played from 1968 to 1984, and he was a 12-time All-Star, 1978 championship team member, and a 69 scoring champion, and the two-time rebounding leader. And he's also in the Hall of Fame as well, and he's not expensive either. You guys might enjoy that card. I haven't seen other cards out there that I'd want from Alvin Hayes. I think I actually have his 1981 tops as well, which I actually like the 81 tops set. Another fan favorite of mine is Jerry Lucas, although I don't really like Jerry Lucas on cards for whatever reason. I do really wish that I could find the tops test of Jerry Lucas because that has a really nice card. However, because I'm not made of money, money does not fall out of trees for me. I had to grab the 72, and I know he's got a 1971 out there, but again, this is actually a nicer card than this is 71. Um, Jerry Lucas was a major standout in college, and he played from 1963 to 1974. He was on the 1973 championship team, and he was a 1965 All-Star Game MVP, a 1964 Rookie of the Year, and a seven-time All-Star. And you guys can look him up, but he had a fantastic career, and he's one of my favorite players. So the next player that I want to tell you guys about is Dave Bing, And Dave Bing was, let me see, he was a 7-time All-Star during a career that lasted from 1966 to 1978. And he was also the 76 All-Star MVP, 1967 Rookie of the Year, and the 1968 scoring champion. And Dave Bing, I believe, was also a politician. I think he was mayor, or he tried to become a mayor, I think, of Detroit. I could be wrong on this. Dave Bing, he has a number of cards out there. This is not his rookie card, but it is a kind of a card that um, I think is affordable for the majority of collectors. I think again it's getting a little more expensive, and from everything that I have seen from this card, uh, the background color can look washed out or faded, and there are other cards in the set where I've seen the black in the lettering here completely disappear, and so it was corrected. So the next player I want to show you guys is George Girvin, and this is him on the 1979 Topps set, which is I think is a very underrated set. And Girvin himself, I think, is very underrated as well. And he played from, let me see, 1976 to 1986, and his nickname was the Iceman. And I was like, well, why'd they call him the Iceman? Anyway, he was a 9-time All-Star, 4-time scoring champion, and he was 75th anniversary uh, team and a 2-time All-Star MVP. He's really, I think, very underrated as a ball player, and his cards are really very cheap. So the next player that I'm going to tell you about is a guy that I've heard about for quite some time, and I was really happy to have grabbed this card. I actually had this card, but I sold it twice. In fact, I've never been able to keep this card, but it's Wes Unsold's 1971 Topps, and Wes Unseld played from 1968 to 1981, and he was on the 1978 championship squad, and I think he was with the Baltimore Bullets, and I want to say he was the 1968 MVP, 5-time All-Star, and the 1969 Rookie of the Year. A very, very impressive ball player. This is a really nice card. It's one of my favorites. I've never been able to keep this card though, so hopefully this time it'll just stay in my collection. And again, the background color has kind of given me problems over the years, which is why I've sold it. And registration I found also to be kind of difficult with this particular card as well. The final card is Bill Walton's 1978 Topps, and I actually had to grab this card because I couldn't get his 1974 Topps rookie. At some point, I will. This is actually the #1 card in the 1978 Topps basketball set, and Walton played from 1974 to 1987. He was on 2 championship teams, 1977 and 1986. And from what I remember, in 1986, the Celtics picked him up, and his knees were shot, but he was still a pretty decent ball player. He was the 1978 MVP and a 2-time All-Star. There are a few cards in this all-time greats list that I don't have, and one of them happens to be uh, Lenny Wilkins. I was looking for his 1971 or 72 Topps, but I do have Wilkins in the 1961 Flair. I would have loved to have picked up a later card of his because he did have a very impactful career later on. But he was a 9-time All-Star, and he was also NBA Coach of the Year, and I think that was 1994. So he had a very successful coaching career as well, and he was also the 1971 All-Star Game MVP, and he is also in the top 10 coaches in NBA history. I don't have that card, and I wish I did. So that's my look into the 50 greatest NBA players in history from the 1970s. And I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this list. If you have any favorite players or cards, I'd love to hear about it. And I would really kind of have gone on further, but I want to respect your time as well. There are a lot of players here from the 1970s that I wanted to cover, specifically like Rudy Tomjanovic, Spencer Haywood, Mel Daniels, Walt Bellamy, Chet Walker, Artis Gilmore. I know he's a favorite of a lot of people. Louis Dampier, George McGinnis. But those guys are going to have to wait for my second video on this subject. In the meantime, guys, give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And again, let me know what you think about this list and your comments below. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it. And take care. Bye.